Oh, hey, I know it's been a minute, and I did promise an update in August. I didn't exactly say what year of August, but it's August 2025, and it's time to catch you up on where we're at with the Sling here. All right, so this is going to be a wrap-up of the entire first rivet process that we started in July of 2021. We've spent the last year, the last year was, the last video was a little over a year ago when we had completed first flight, or that part of the process. First of all, I want to start off by thanking all the people that, this isn't a solo process, even though most of the build was done by myself. It's not without the support of friends and family. I've neighbors that helped store parts, neighbors that come over and help lift heavy things when things got heavy. The guy that's holding the camera right now, Adam, he came out and helped with the first flight video, so that was super helpful. Don helped a lot as well. He's featured in a few videos. A lifelong friend of mine, Jeff, come down and help as well as my wife, obviously, because this doesn't happen without her. She made sure that everything was taken care of in the home. The clothes were washed, food was on the table. She often would have sandwiches ready before I understood that I was hungry yet. So that kind of stuff helps with this type of process. The overall build time was just at 3 years to the month. This last Oshkosh, which happened just a couple weeks ago, I did talk to a couple of other builders that built a flat build kit in 12 months. Which was just staggering to me, but they were building full time, and they were absolutely gorgeous. If you're not a Sling owner or builder as part of this process, you're watching this video, one thing you really have to understand is it's a very family-oriented operation. Everybody takes care of everybody else. I get emails and phone calls from other builders or people who are interested in building or people who are interested in flying, and they reach out and have questions, and I'll take as much time as I have available to answer any questions. And builders that reach out, I'm happy to help. And when I built my plane, I had the same kind of help, and it's only growing. Here in Colorado, there's 5 or 6 Slings flying right now, or close to flying. So it's just a matter of getting started, basically. It does take some time, but in my personal opinion, this is an easy build. I've not built other airplanes, so I don't have a frame of reference, but having watched other builders, this just goes together. Parts fit perfectly when you put them together, if they're put together right. If they're not put together right, you don't have it together right. It's not inexpensive, but what you get at the end through the labor put in to make it, you get a very capable airplane. We flew this plane back from paint in first part of July of 2025, spent a couple weeks here, and then we went to Oshkosh with it. So we were seeing about 145 knots indicated. I was flying at 80% power most of the trip, and we were seeing about 160, 165 knots across the ground. So really good performance. 9 gallons per hour is what the fuel burn rate was. So my total time in air at some point in times was a little over 4.5 hours, and I still had 12 gallons of reserves. So it's got great range, and I'm still learning parts of the process of how far I can fly, how to manage the aircraft, but it's all part of that process. So anyway, I'll give you a quick tour around the airplane while we're still outside, and it's hot. We're on the ramp here at the airport that we're based out of, but just wanted to point out some of the details in the paint scheme. So come on over, and I'll put up on the screen the plan that we had working off of from Evoke did the design, and the paint shop was Cascade Custom Painting out of Bend, Oregon. It's a family-owned business, and a bunch of great guys there. They really went out of their way to try to do the best job that they could, and I feel like we got a really good paint job out of it. So on the back side, on the wing here itself, we've got the checkerboard that fades into the rest of the wing, and Evan Brunier's last build, the gentleman that had that airplane, Evoque painted it, and they had this really great carbon fiber inlay. I'm sorry, but I really like that, and I asked Cascade to see if they could replicate something like that. And they did a really great job with it. So there's a carbon fiber inlay that's within the paint, and then the black stripe that's inside the paint here actually has some red elements to it. So when it's under direct sunlight, there's red sparkles that actually are in the dark part of the paint. And then it's a pearl paint job through the rest of the wing. We didn't want to have a solid color, just knowing that the fuel gets hot, and we didn't want the tanks to get overheated when it's in hot temperatures like this. And then the other part is the ramps up onto the wing itself. They're white. We had some conversations with the paint shop about that, and the problem with black ramps, even though it's easy to identify, they get very, very hot, and by painting them white, they will be a little less hot when you're getting onto the wing. So we'll see how it holds up. I'm taking great care to make sure that I keep that part of the wing clean, because with your feet trekking up there, you definitely see the dirt and the dust as it comes up, and so it's one of the first things that I clean up when I'm cleaning the plane. Other than that, I mean, the paint scheme just basically runs, some typical kind of swooshies and whatnot in the airplane, and the colors turned out really great. The red just pops when it's in the light. When it's darker out, it's a darker red, but when you're out in the sunlight like this, we kind of wanted to shoot for maybe like a Ferrari red. It's a little darker than that. It's more like an auburn. It's pretty close to what the Behringer wheels are. So, but they're covered with the wheel pants, so there's no correlation there. If you go back to when I was building the wings, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to have a position for camera mounts on the wings. I have some intentions to do some video work in the mountains here in Colorado, and I wanted to have the capability of having a good solid camera mount as well as a charging location. So the plates at the end of each wingtip, both top and bottom, that I installed with a USB connection like this, that should feed the power to the camera, which I have rib nuts that are in the rib itself for structural stability. So everybody's got a little bit different way of doing it, and of course when I was doing this nearly 3 years ago, the technology was a little bit different, and the features are now a little more capable. Lots of people are doing this, so the newer stuff is actually a little bit more elegant. If I had to do this over again, I would do it a little differently. I'm not terribly happy with that I put a hole in the wing, but the nice part is that I had this set up so that if I choose to, I can take this plate out with the USB port and put just a blank plate on, and so I can take that off if I want to at any point in time. And it's all painted, and with the checkerboard, they've actually numbered the plates to replace this with, so I should have a 1-to-1 and not have some odd color showing differently. All right, so we're going to roll this back in the hangar. It is warm out. I think it's 85 degrees, and we're out on the ramp. It's hot, so it's going to be a little more comfortable in the hangar. We'll do a quick wrap up, but I'm going to roll it back into the hangar real quick. Ready? All right. All right, so we're back in the hangar. It's a little cooler. We're in the shade, so that's what's important. So for those of you that are just kind of coming here for the first time or seeing this video for the first time, I'll do a real quick overview of the different ways that you can build the airframe. There's the flat build kit, which is where everything comes in boxes. Nothing is put together. You are responsible for putting it all together. That's the method that we did here. The other way you can do it is a quick build kit, where the wings are done, the fuselage is mostly done, you hang the engine, you build the empennage, interior, all of that, all of those things that you're responsible for. The idea on a quick build kit is that comes effectively at a 49% of the build, and you're responsible for the 51% of the build. And the build isn't based on, that 51% is not based on consumption of materials, it's based on tasks. So, and that becomes important when we talk about the builder assist, which there's a number of facilities around the country that actually do that. And the builder's assist still do that 49%. You're still responsible for that 51%, but then they'll have a task list that you'll be responsible for doing things with. I chose the slow build kit or the flat build kit because as you can imagine, with each stage, it becomes increasingly more expensive because you're paying for people to assemble those parts, or with the assistants that are coming with a facility like with a builder assist program. Builder assist program, you'll be at their facilities using their tools. They'll have people on staff that help you with the different parts of the process. I can tell you that, Mike, again, in my opinion, the flat build kit, the instructions are very good, right up to about the firewall. It gets a little interesting after that. But again, the help is there. So once you get to firewall forward, it gets a little more challenging because there's different ways of doing things that are not documented in a way that it's as plain as building the plane. Building the plane is easy. Again, parts just go together. So it's just the time that's involved with it. All right, so one of the questions that I get a lot is how much time it took to build. That's something that you're supposed to, the way the build process works is it's on tasks again, like I said. It's not on time. A lot of times you'll go out and you'll look at an airplane kit and it'll say it takes 1,500 hours to build, or it takes 2,500 hours to build, or something along those lines. And that's really an estimated time. It's not, some of it depends on how much or how frequently you build. If you're building every day, it will get done much quicker because you're in the mode, your mind's thinking about it, the tools are there, you're in the motion of building. If you build a day a week or once a month, there's always going to be that lag time where you come out to the shop and you start to work and you're like, well, where was I? And it takes you like an hour or two just to figure out what you were doing last. So that's the thing with doing the build, is it's really important to do as much as you can every day, even if it's just coming out and looking ahead to the next step of the process. There were certainly days where I didn't do anything other than just review documentation and make plans for what I was going to be doing the next day. It might have been an hour, it might have been a couple of hours. It's what I had available. And building in the garage really helped because I literally couldn't get out of the house through the garage without going by everything that needed to be done. We displaced our cars out of the garage during that process, and you know, I like to have my car inside in the wintertime just because it's easier to keep it off the snow off of it. So that's in relation to how much time I built. For me, it was 3 years. I mean, the kit arrived July of 2021. We did inventory over a couple of weeks. Sling has been, I've talked to some recent builders that have just received their kits in the last couple months, and their kits are almost all complete. One gentleman I talked to, out of the thousands of parts, I mean, rivets, little plates and all that stuff, he had, I think, less than 30 pieces that he was missing. So, and when it comes to the build process, you build as far as you can with the material that you have. And if you can't build any further because you're missing a part, you set that part aside and you go start working on the next stage of things. There were a number of times where I would be working on the wings or the empennage or something like that, I was missing a part and I couldn't go on to the next step with that piece. So I set that part that I was working on aside and I'd just start moving on to the next piece. You know, the downside is you got to come back and try to remember where you're at, but when the part shows up, it's like, oh, cool, I can go back and I can start working on that part. So, you know, that's one of the big tips that I have, is just to always be working on it every day. And we'll let the plane go by. Oh, I certainly didn't know everything that I needed to know in order to build this airplane. And that is a little advantageous because not knowing what you don't know sometimes helps. But I knew where to find resources on that. One of the other sling builders that I literally just was out with him yesterday, Aaron, a good friend of mine, he has been an immense help with this whole process. I would be stuck just like, I do not know what to do next. And he'd take the time to come over and walk me through the next steps. I mean, he had somebody else do that for him, and I'm more than happy to do that with anybody else that's building in the area. So there's that component. The other part is if you're watching this and you're not an EAA member, or at minimum an EAA chapter member that's local, if you don't have one, try to find the closest one to you. But the EAA chapters have what they call technical counselors. And those are people that are experienced in building aircraft. The Sling is a relatively new airplane still, even though they're selling them like crazy. They're very popular, but the technical counselors have enough skill. Typically, they've built 2, 3, 4, 5 airplanes. They'll be familiar with working with the raw materials and wiring and structural components and things like that. I had a personal boundary around when I was getting ready to close up a major component. I would reach out to the technical counselor. Technical counselor would come over, inspect the parts, make sure everything looked good, and they had a little form that they'd fill out and feed back to the EAA so that they could show that they were doing sort of tasks with the organization. It's also helpful when you go to do the inspection. The designated airworthiness representative, which is the DAR, may ask if you had any technical counselors working with you on the process. And if you have that documentation, it will help with the inspection process. So those are some of the key people to have in your back pocket. Obviously, the people with Sling are very good. If you have technical issues that haven't been answered, Sling does have a bulletin board. We've got a Discord channel. They're very active on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but I know that they're very active over there because I get feedback from that on and off. And then there's also technical support. A tip on technical support from Sling: if you're not talking to somebody that's, I'm filming this in North America. Sling is obviously built in, the main manufacturing is all done in South Africa. So if you email Sling technical support, that email goes to Sling South Africa. So always be mindful of, if you have a technical question and it's like, say, the beginning of your day here in North America, don't wait until tomorrow to send the email, because you have to plan at least 24 hours, assuming you're during the week. And they do have holidays that are dissimilar to what we have in the United States. So it may take a day or two to get a response back from from Sling. So just be mindful of that when you're needing to email them, because there is a delay in that process. If you email late at night, you might catch them early in the morning. If you get up early in the morning, you might catch them late at night. But you have to kind of be mindful of the different work cycles that they're in. All right, so in our plane, we have this is a pretty common setup. Midwest Panels did our panel. And if anybody's sort of on the fence on who they should use for avionics, honestly, it's kind of just a no-brainer. I mean, their workmanship is top-notch. I really like things that are built to tight tolerances and are just very high quality, and their stuff is so well built. I almost want to say it's a plug and play, because for every one of these that they do, they try to figure out an easier way for someone like me to do the installation. So there were a few things that I did have to adjust, but they were pretty minor. So overall, it's money well spent working with them, and their knowledge and expertise, if you're not interested in doing your own avionics or building your own panels or anything like that, their expertise is incredible. I had a particular problem where I was trying to track down I wasn't getting a solid connection on the power, and I was talking with Adam, and Adam is literally, I could almost see him just sort of mentally walking through the process. So quick pause for the jet to go by. My particular hangar is actually on the corporate taxiway, so we do get a fair amount of corporate jets that go by. Anyway, so I mean, he knows the system so well, he doesn't need to look at the schematics because he knows how it's built. And through just a process of elimination, we were able to find out that when I had actually run the main power bus to the VPX panel, I didn't actually tighten the lug, which was causing intermittent power connections. So we got that resolved. Anyway, beyond that, it's the standard G3X, the 650, GFC 500, G5, do have the Airmaster prop. The only other things that I really did that's maybe a little bit different was I did have the certified horn installed, so just because it's fun, and it actually does serve a purpose. The Rotex 915 is a very quiet engine, and I mean, how often have you been at the airport and you see somebody that you know and you kind of want to get their attention? You know, they're not in an airplane or something. What are you gonna do? Rev the engine? I mean, there's engines revving all the time in the airport. They would never turn around. You honk the horn, they're gonna look. The other part that I do have is the obligatory also passenger eject button that's over here. It just, you know, keeps the passengers a little on edge, and if they're acting up, I'll threaten to use it. The other thing that I actually also did, and I really went back and forth on this, was the rosin sun visors. They're an addition that you do, I don't know, I think they're like $500 or something like that. I really debated on getting them just because it's a fairly narrow window that goes out, and this does add to noise in that space. But what I found is that when I get out, I just put the rosin visors forward, and when we're flying, we just flip them back, and the visibility is just fine. We use them quite a bit coming back from Bend when we got it painted, and then also flying to Oshkosh and back. You know, the only maybe downside, if there is one, is they don't go all the way back on the window, but that's pretty minor considering that you know, they work really well beyond that. So if you're thinking about it and you're kind of on the fence of the rosin visors, I highly recommend them. I think they're fantastic. Some of the things that I did was I did also add some emergency, they're basically the knife to be able to cut the seatbelt loose, and then something to pierce the plexiglass with. I've got those on both sides of the airplane. I wanted my passengers to be able to have a way to egress if there is a situation where the door doesn't unlock or we can't get the canopy to open and we need to be able to break something. If you're following the slings at all for any particular reason, you'll know that some of the conversations are on the TSI. There is a tendency to have a bit aft CG issues. That can be all managed depending upon your loading and your fuel, where your fuel's at and things like that. But what I did do is I went back and I looked at all of the tools that I used for the build. The 10 millimeter wrenches, the socket for the wheel, anything that I might need to have if I'm not at my home airport. And I built a toolkit that rolls up into a bag like this, and it's about 20 pounds. So that just sits nicely right below the passenger seat up front, out of the way of their feet. It's just completely tucked out of the way, and it adds a little bit of the forward CG on it. The other thing is I do have the claw tie-down bag, and I keep that on my side of the bag, my side of the cabin, and that is about another 15 to 20 pounds of weight. So between those two things, I've got about 35 to 40 pounds forward CG that I'm adding to the plane. I did look at doing them forward of the control, the pedals, but other than the fact that it was really far forward, the bags were a little bit bigger than what would allow for those bags to actually sit up there. It would interfere with the pedals. So I do have the Behringer wheels on the plane. I am, I think, the third or fourth TSI to have the Behringer wheels. I worked a little bit with Henry at Midwest Sky Sports in having to retrofit the Behringers themselves. In retrospect, that added a lot more time that was kind of unnecessary to the build. Would I do the Behringer wheels again? Yes, I would do that now, given that that's an option on the kit. If I had to do it over again and they weren't an option, I probably would have stuck with the Matco and just oversized the wheels. It did add several weeks of extra work to the build itself. But as part of that, there's just it's a different braking lever that Behringer provides, and so it's a little bit different, but I still have the handbrake. So, all right. So what was the DAR experience like, or the designated airworthiness representative? I think my experience was probably different than some other people's. I had found a DAR that had already done a sling inspection at one time before, and so he was familiar with the airplane. Honestly, I was like sweating bullets over all the little nuance things that could possibly be pointed out. One tip that I would say is if you're in the stage of the build where you're getting ready to have the DAR inspection, one really great piece of advice that I either read or somebody told me about was to invite other airplane builders or other pilots over with the airplane opened up. Give them a little piece of sticky paper and say, hey, if you see anything that has a question, like you're not really sure why it's done that way, or a problem, or something you need to do differently, just put a sticky on it, and or have them write what they need to have done and put the sticky on that particular part. Because I can tell you, even now, 85 hours into the flying it, I'm still finding things where it's like, why did I do it that way? That's not good. I got to do that differently. And it's mostly stuff within the firewall forward, just wiring, routing, and you're finding areas where things are rubbing where you didn't expect them to rub. But anyway, so the DAR inspection took a little bit of coordinating to find one that could be done in a reasonable amount of time. Most people were like DPEs. I'm available in 6 weeks or 2 or 3 months from now. But the guy that had done the inspection on the other sling, he wound up being available in a couple of days. So we worked that out. He came out, did the inspection. It was as abbreviated as I could possibly imagine, to the point where I was like, did he miss something? Because I expected him to get fully involved and dig in deep, but honestly, it was a really pretty painless process to go through. When I went to go get my repairman certificate, the FAA did come out. They had a new person that was just starting in the office or being promoted or something like that. And so because they had a new person, the existing person came out with the new person, and they both looked the plane over. I always find it kind of entertaining to have those conversations with with people who are like, oh, so you really built this airplane? And it's like, no, I really did. It's having the confidence to say, yes, I know that I built this airplane is an interesting space to be in. But anyway, so the FAA came out and they looked over the paperwork. The DAR inspection, just be as prepared as you could possibly be. Invite people over. The EA chapters, they're always wanting to go look at airplanes. Who doesn't want to look at airplanes? So, if you even said, hey, look, we're going to have a chapter meeting at, my hangar or wherever your build is at, you can put a cap on it. So, 15 people is the max I can do or something like that. You're going to get a lot of experience and a lot of people looking at it. Sorry, more it's helicopter noise this time. A friend of mine, he's got a hangar just across the ramp here, and he came over and looked at the airplane, and he noticed right away that I was using nuts with nylon in the firewall forward. There's obviously a lot of heat in the inside the cowling where the engine's at. And he said, yeah, the nylon's going to wear out pretty quick. So I switched all of the nuts out from the nylon nuts to just regular metal nuts with some Loctite. So it was a good call out, and I really appreciated him doing that. So it's just those types of things, tips as far as how to get over the last hump that really helped, I think, with getting the DAR inspection to go very smoothly. All right, so let's talk about insurance, because that's probably one of the easier things to overlook when you're in this process. Should be something you consider before you start building, because the traditional thing is when you're trying to insure an airplane, they're going to take a look at experience. And I'm currently a commercially rated single engine land with instrument, and I'm just north of, at the time I started, was like high 800s. And I'm well into 900s at this point in time as far as total time. The insurance industry definitely changes and flexes and things like that in ways that none of us really can predict. And I'm not a big fan of insurance because I just don't, I'm trying not to say something mean, but anyway, when I first started looking at insurance, because I didn't have any instructed time in the aircraft, they really were exorbitant in their prices, in my opinion. I did just check this last week. It's August 25, and the rates have come down. I've got 85 hours in the plane. It's a little bit more reasonable. you know, they do want transition training as part of the process. Again, my friend with the sling, he's not an instructor, but I did go up and put time in his airplane with him in the airplane, and he's an excellent pilot. If he ever chose to be an instructor, he'd be an excellent instructor. He's very much a numbers guy. Made me honest in flying the airplane, and you know, I was very comfortable with what I got on that. Doesn't mean that, you know, I'm perfect yet, but anyway, so insurance is going to really vary depending upon where you're at in the country, what your ratings are, what your skill is. Probably the nice part is over the last 3 years, a lot of other training opportunities have come online. I believe both Midwest Panel Builders and, don't quote me on this, but I believe Midwest Panel Builders and Sky Sports both have planes they can train in. There's also another gentleman, name escapes me at the moment, but they're on the East Coast, and I think that their transition or their training airplane is just about being done. There's time that you can go out to Torrance, California, and do the training out there as well. So, you know, if you want to do the transition training, keep your insurance rates low, definitely recommended. If you're coming from a typical certified airplane, like you know, if you're going from 172 to this, if you're going from even a heavier, bigger airplane to something like the TSI, I learned to fly in a light sport aircraft, so I've got time in an airplane that's a lighter aircraft. But I've flown everything up to Saratogas and 210s and heavier airplanes, so I'm familiar with sort of the gambit of it. This is a lighter airplane, and it will fly a little bit differently than a heavier aircraft. So you have to basically be introduced to that. But it's a great platform. You know, it's exactly the right mix of everything, and it flies fantastic. It's like a little sports car. So, but anyway, so plan some transition training if you're you know, looking to get into one of these, especially if you're buying it aftermarket or something like that. It's a different, it flies differently than just a traditional certified airplane. So just make sure you budget that as part of your transition time. Even if you're building, doesn't matter, but it's definitely good to get some extra experience, make the insurance companies happy. The bills are never happy, but makes the bills easier. So. All right, so let's talk about oxygen. These planes really fly well at plus 12.5 and on up to 18, 19,000 feet, depending upon the engine that you have in the airplane. So getting oxygen is definitely a consideration. When I first started to build this, a lot of the conversations were around using the Iogens, which, the G5s I think they were. Those you can typically find on Craigslist for $1,200 to $1,500 each. They do have some power requirements, like a cigarette lighter. You have to make sure you work with how you're managing the power in the airplane. Midwest Panel Builders is aware of a lot of the consumption on this. But they also do have a really good oxygen system. And one of the more recent ones that's come on in the market in the recent years is the one called ITHRE. It's AITHRE. They're a little pricey in my opinion. But they, again, much like Midwest, they make a very solid piece of equipment. And oxygen for, you know, that's something you want to work. So when they put their, one of their systems on sale for, I don't know, it's $2,600 or something like that. It's a 2-place oxygen system. It's meant to be their portable system. It's a big box. It's not terribly portable because you can't really put it in the back seat if you have passengers, because it will take up almost a third or half of the footwell that it would go into. It does come with like a cigarette lighter adapter. There is a hardware function to it. And their systems, Iogens are also limited in what their altitude are to, but if I remember correctly, the ITHRE one, this particular one is limited to 15,000, I think is per their documentation. Definitely check all these numbers. I would defer to their material as well. I'm just basically doing this off the top of my head from what I remember. So when they put that on sale, I bought it and I was like, okay, well, I'll try to figure out where to install this. And there are some considerations that you have to remember when you're using any system like this is, well, if the oxygen quits, okay, well, what's your backup on that? And, what's the flow of oxygen? At the end of the day, all that really matters is what your pulse ox is. So I'm monitoring my pulse ox during flight when I'm flying up at higher altitudes. You really want like a 90 or better. So as long as I'm achieving that, that's really the important part. If I'm noticing I can't sustain 90 or better, I will obviously need to descend at that point in time and get back down to sub 12.5 levels. So anyway, so the way I actually managed this process was I got their portable system and I have it lightly installed in the airplane. Effectively what I did is I put some thumb screws with rib nuts to secure the unit in the back of the aircraft, and then I hard plumbed lines from the back to the front of the airplane. Now, if you go look at their system, there's no remote way to turn on and off their this unit. So I had to figure out a way to be able to, this being all the way in the back of the aircraft, I had to figure out a way to be able to turn the oxygen on and off remotely. And this is where I stumbled across. There's a Bluetooth activated button switch that literally just, when you pull it up on your phone, you hit the button and the button goes, it's just battery operated, and it goes click, click, and it turns on whatever it is. It's meant for using in your home to turn on and off light switches that you don't want to do upgrades to. So it's a very soft, and it just pushes and then it's done. And then of course you reverse it on the other end. And when I'm using it, when I turn it on, the iThrow system also has an application that works off of Bluetooth. So I can see when the system's on, and I can see what the oxygen flow is coming out of the system. So it is installed in the back of the aircraft. There's not a backup oxygen bottle. If you do the Cadillac version from Midwest, which is, they do, again, a very good job of implementing this. They do have a backup system as part of that, but it can get very expensive. And by building it the way I've done it, I have to be mindful of, okay, if I have a failure, I just can't fly high. Changes how I fly. I just have to fly at a lower altitude, and that's part of the flight plan. Is what are my outs as part of that process. So, but again, I think iThrow makes a very solid piece of equipment. I think it's engineered very well, and the owner of the company has done a lot of work on it. So I do believe that I shouldn't really have much of a problem with it working. Good. All right. So one of the other things that I did on this, a couple of engine maintenance, management, caretaking kind of stuff. So I did get the battery minder set up for the aircraft, for the battery. I've got the EarthX. I mean, I think everybody's getting that. It's pretty common. The other thing is because I'm in Colorado and I do have a hangar, having the engine on a heating element from Tannis. There's a couple of other vendors out there, but Tannis makes one for the 915. It's a little interesting to install, but the Rotex does have points to mount it on, and once you figure the instructions out, it's not too bad. But effectively what happens is there's a heating element per cylinder and then a probe that goes in the back of the engine block to heat the engine block itself, and then a pad that's around the oil tank itself. So the way I've got that set up is I've just got the extra Tannis plug that comes into the outside here, and the way I've got it, I've got a power distribution from the top of the hangar with a remote on-off switch, and I just take an extension cord off of that, and that plugs into the Tannis. So in the wintertime, the engine block will be able to be heated, and I can remotely turn it on and off as necessary. And then I also got the engine battery minder as well, and that actually also plugs into this as well. For those of you that are watching that are like, oh my God, you can't put that on in a heater for very long or anything like that. I've been flying out of Colorado for the last 17 years. I've been in 2 different flight clubs that have a total of 5 different airplanes, and the club rules are the engines are always being heated when they're not being flown. The Colorado's a fairly dry climate, and so there's really not the moisture buildup issues that some people get concerned about. These airplanes these 5 different airplanes that I'm I've personally flown over the last 17 years. They've all been heated all the time, and they've never worn their engines out because of the moisture issues related to being on heater all the time. So I mean, that's been my experience. The only other option is one of the airplanes I had was actually in a heated hangar, so that's a different story, and you don't need an engine block heater for that. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I take good care of the engine as much as possible. I mean, it is a sizable investment. All right, so one of the questions I get fairly frequently, especially in the last year or so, is if I have the 915 or the 916. I literally was tightening the bolts on the engine mount for the 915 when the 916 was announced. So I was fairly committed at that point in time. You know, basically my plan at this point in time is to fly the 915 until I reach whatever end of life that might be on it. I mean, 1,200 hours is the TBO from Rotax. But if it goes longer than that, okay. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Then again, I mentioned earlier with the Airmaster prop, that's pretty much the combo with the 915. With the 916, that opens up you know, different prop types, different how the prop is managed, whether it's an electric pitch or if it's a hydraulic. That'll all be something that I'll make decisions on further down the road once I fly the pants off of this thing. All right, so let's talk about costs, because that's probably the first couple of questions that people always ask. You know, the airplane prices have gone up over the last 3 or 4 years. There's certainly tariffs that are being applied now, and Sling is very carefully managing how that goes through. You know, the philosophy that I have on that is you know, there's when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, best time was 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. So yes, it's definitely an expensive engagement to go through. It's time and money. But the only way stuff like this gets done is when you start. I would never recommend overextending yourself financially to do something like this. I've been very, very fortunate in my place in life and the support that I've gotten. Again, my wife has been very, very understanding in this process, and quite frankly, you know, that's a whole nother video on how to, you know, keep your wife involved with something like this, because that at the end of the day, I mean, if you destroy a relationship over building something like this because of the financial cost or the time commitments, it makes it challenging. You know, obviously you reach out to Sling. I feel like I've got a very good deal because the costs have only gone up from when we started building this, and it's not substantial, but you know, it has gone up. All right, so that's been kind of my walk around of the plane, getting it built and to this stage of things. I know a lot of people have been watching. Certainly welcome to your feedback. If you have questions or anything like that, you know, this is going to be on YouTube, so there's the whole comment section and whatnot. I don't know what will come in the channel in the future. Some of the things that I'm going to be working on aren't necessarily specific to the first Rivet channel. They're going to be more related to the aviation in Colorado, which is a separate process or program that I'm involved with. If there's something that you'd like to see, like, you know, how do you change the oil or how do you do something, let me know. I mean, I'm happy to do a quick little video on it as I have time. And, you know, let me know if you have questions. I'm always happy to help. That's all I have.